This is part 1 on our lecture series of introductions, conclusions, and titles. So first we're going to talk about introductions. Your introduction has a lot of jobs to do. It needs to focus the reader's attention on your subject, arouse their curiosity, specify what topic you're going to discuss, and usually, not always, but usually, ending your thesis statement. It also needs to be concise so you don't spend too much time getting to the point. It doesn't have to be the first part of the paper you write. In fact, you may want to write the rest of your paper and then go back and write your introduction later. I like to write my introduction first, where I sort of set up what I'm going to be doing in my essay, so I have a guideline as I continue. But always go back and check that, even if you write your introduction first, to make sure that it matches where you ended up going. Because sometimes your paper changes as you write it. So we're going to go over some strategies that you can use in your introduction. A lot of students say, I don't know what to put in here, I don't know where to start. So here are some ideas. You could use a provocative quotation to set the stage. Maybe you've read one of your sources that says something very interesting about the subject, or maybe you know of a famous saying about the subject. I always warn students when using a quotation, make sure it matches really closely with your actual subject. So please don't bring up one of those well-known quotations, you know, give me liberty or give me death, and then try to tie it to a subject that's not really related to, like legalizing marijuana. Instead, look at this example. So this person is talking about the disease of AIDS making people think of sex as having possibly the direst consequences, suicide or murder. And so this would be a good quotation if you're talking specifically about the sexual transmission of AIDS. It wouldn't be a very good quotation if your paper is about suicide, because that's not exactly what it's about. So make sure your quotation matches. Another thing you can do in your introduction is to provide a historical review. Help your reader understand how we got to the situation that we're in now. So if you were going to talk about affirmative action, you might give a little bit of a history of civil rights and race relations in the United States. This is something that you almost need to do if your subject is historically rooted. So it might be very important for you to give readers a little bit of an overview over how we got to the current situation, and then you might want to provide a historical review. Kind of similar to the historical review is the review of a controversy. So that's where you're outlining two sides to an issue. This is really good if your particular topic has two clear-cut positions, especially if the position that you are taking is going to be different than those two original positions. So you can outline the two basic stances and then let your readers know where you stand in relation to those two. One thing you can do is the good old transition from the general to the specific. We might have talked about this before as a funnel introduction. So you start talking about a broad situation and you narrow it down to your specific topic. So in this case, you might be talking about illegal file downloading and who's responsible. You might talk about parents being responsible for their children in general and then narrow it to the specific example of downloading files. You can also do specific to the general. Now notice when we say general to the specific, we mean more general than your thesis to your specific thesis, and when we say specific to the general, we mean more specific than your thesis to your thesis. So both of these end up landing exactly where your thesis is. If you're doing the specific to the general, then you're talking about a specific example, a specific circumstance or anecdote. So you're going to tell a specific story. So for example, if you're trying to argue against drinking and driving, then you might tell the story of a particular tragedy to kind of make that real for readers and get their attention. Another strategy you can use is a question. So keep in mind that your thesis itself is never a question. So don't end your introduction with a question. Your thesis is an answer. But if you want to introduce your research process, maybe let readers know what questions you were asking that led you to your conclusion, that led you to your thesis, you can include those questions in your introduction. So you can say, here's a circumstance. Why is this circumstance the case? What could we do about this, for example, in your introduction? And of course, you can have more than one strategy. So if you have a historical review but also a really good quotation, yeah, of course, you can use both of them, of course, as long as your introduction's not getting too long. Whatever you're doing, make sure that your introduction culminates in the thesis. Make sure that it is not too long. So you probably don't want your introduction to stretch onto the second page. It probably needs to stay on that first page. Don't apologize. Don't complain. Don't assume your audience already knows everything about your subject matter. You don't want to over-explain, so you certainly don't want to start telling people, say, what kindergarten is. But, you know, you're talking about fracking, give us a one-sentence definition. Let us know what that means. And try not to use the same thing. If you've read a sort of introduction to a topic before and someone else did it that exact same way, maybe you should try to be a little bit more creative and not use the same thing. So when you're thinking about which strategy you can use, these are the questions to ask yourself. Did someone famous say something witty or memorable about the subject? Then use the quotation strategy. Is your argument rooted in historical events? Then use the historical review. Or are you addressing a topic with two deeply entrenched conflicting viewpoints? Then use the review of a controversy. If you arrived at your final thesis by narrowing down a much broader topic, maybe going general to specific will come naturally to you. Or if you arrived at your thesis by expanding a more narrow interest, for example, if your family member has a disease and that's why you're studying it, then maybe you want to go from specific to general. Lastly, consider if you arrived at your thesis by seeking the answer to a particular research question, that would be a good situation in which to use the question strategy. And here's an overview of those strategies. Next video, we'll talk about conclusions.